Hello, my name is Miroslav. I am a software architect and mathematician, and in this presentation we will prove that God exists, and in particular that He is the God of the Bible. Many big name mathematicians in the past have proved that God exists with different kind of proofs, in particular Leibniz. But the greatest mathematicians have been always Christians, like Newton, Leibniz, which I mentioned, Gauss, undoubtedly the greatest ever mathematician, Green, and just about every 19th century, except for a few French, have been devoted Christians. And so it is not irrational to believe in God. And we will see that it is absolutely rational, seeing the proof that I will present to you in a minute. Of course, others, such as Beethoven, Liszt, and the other greatest musicians were Christians. So again, there is something to it. Okay, well, let's begin. The proof takes simple facts, just puts them on paper, and then we see where these facts leads us and what they tell us. So we make one definition, and it is definition 1. Truth is this which is true or correct. Truth is this which is true or correct. It doesn't assume that true or correct thing exists, it just calls that which is true or correct truth. Theorem 2. Truth always exists. Proof. Suppose that truth does not exist, but then this very statement is wrong, so truth exists. Now we just prove that truth exists. Now we want to prove that truth always exists. So what we do is to look through all the possibilities. Suppose something exists. Now, either the truth about it also exists, or the truth about it does not exist. If the truth about it exists, then that's fine, that we're done. If the truth about it does not exist, then it is a lie that it exists. So if something exists, then the truth about it also exists. So if something exists, the truth about it also exists. Suppose that nothing exists, but then you're hearing voices. Suppose that nothing exists, but then I don't exist and you're hearing voices. Well, okay. Suppose that nothing exists, but then I don't exist, but I do exist as I read and write this. So it's a contradiction that nothing exists. Because if nothing exists, I don't exist, but I clearly exist, so nothing does not exist. So if something exists, then the truth about it also exists. And nothing doesn't exist, so truth always exists. Note 3. Something always exists. At minimum, the truth always exists. Now, this is a profound statement if you think about it. And what's so profound about it is that it states that something always exists, and it is the truth. Truth always exists. Some philosophers in the past have asked, why should something exist rather than nothing? Corollary 4. Corollary means a small theorem. Truth is self-sustaining. Proof. From Theorem 2, truth always exists, but this is itself a truth. So the existence of truth is a truth. The existence of truth is a truth. So truth is self-sustaining. Okay. Corollary 5. Truth is absolute. Proof. The proof of Theorem 2 used only absolute terms, so their product is absolute. Corollary 6. Truth is complete, as in covers everything. Proof. This follows immediately from Theorem 2, since truth always exists. So if truth always exists, then it applies to everything as we saw it even in the very proof here. Okay. We could have used that statement as a proof, but it just follows immediately. Remark, we can make a different argument and reach the same conclusion. Okay, we'll just do it for mental exercise. We proved already that truth is complete, but let's try another way to go about it. Knowledge as a category is complete. i.e. has no boundaries. Now, what it says is that everything that exists has information about it, and that information is the knowledge about it, and we may not know it, but it is there and it is complete for as long as the thing is there. But knowledge is of truth, so truth is also complete. One can say that we are just chewing the same thing over and over, and that's about the size of it, but we are chewing it the same thing over and over. We get different tastes and or pay attention to different flavors, if you like, and so find facts about the truth which will take us to where it will take us. Corollary 7. Truth is consistent, as in there is only one truth about a thing. Proof. Suppose there are two truths about something in its completeness, but then the truth is not absolute. This contradicts Corollary 5, so there is only one truth about anything. Now, some people claim that there are two truths about things. I prefer red, they prefer blue. Each of those are truth, but in their completeness, they include you on them. Is red better than blue for you in its completeness? Okay. Theorem 8. Consciousness exists. Okay. Proof. I do not exist implies that I do not think. So if I don't exist, I don't think, obviously. The contrapositive is I think, therefore I exist. Contrapositive is equivalent statement. So if this is true, the contrapositive is true. So I think, therefore I exist is true, but I am conscious as I prove that I exist. So consciousness exists. Now, obviously consciousness exists, but we just have it on paper now with a proper proof. Theorem 9. Truth is conscious. This is the only theorem that requires a little stretch of the imagination. Truth is conscious. Now, in the beginning, when we said truth is this which is true or correct, it's kind of just a naming, but now we're saying that it actually has self-awareness. Proof. By Theorem 8, consciousness exists, and by Corollary 6, truth covers everything. So by Theorem 8, consciousness exists, by Corollary 6, truth is complete, i.e. covers everything. So, consciousness is either represented or present in truth. So what we are saying here is that consciousness exists, truth covers everything, we want to find out what's their relationship. So, consciousness is either represented or present in truth. But consciousness cannot be represented by other than consciousness, so it is present in truth. So think about it. Consciousness cannot be represented by anything other than consciousness, just by its nature. Consciousness cannot be represented by a letter, for example. A mind cannot be represented by a book, because the book doesn't think. So consciousness cannot be represented by other than consciousness. Now, why we don't have the other way around, that truth is represented in consciousness? Because truth is the fundamental. Now, consciousness is of comprehension, and comprehension cannot be partial in order to be truthful and exist in the realm of truth. So, comprehension cannot be partial if it is to be truthful. And comprehension, in fact, cannot be partial, because you either understand something or you don't understand something. If you don't understand it, that's fine, but you don't understand it. But if you understand it, you understand it. So comprehension is complete if it is to exist, and especially in the realm of truth. If you would object in general, you cannot object it in the realm of truth, where in order to be truthful, it has to be complete, because the truth, we said, is complete, covers everything. So comprehension and consciousness are throughout truth, so truth is conscious. Let's get over it once again. By Theorem 8, consciousness exists, and by Corollary 6, truth covers everything. So they're somehow mixed. We want to see what's the relationship between them. So consciousness is either represented or present in truth, but consciousness cannot be represented by any other thing than consciousness, so either way it is present in truth. So consciousness is somehow present in truth. Now, consciousness is of comprehension, and comprehension cannot be partial in order to be truthful and exist in the realm of truth. So, to be truthful, comprehension must be complete. So, comprehension and consciousness because it is of relationship, is throughout truth, because it's complete, comprehension is complete. So truth is conscious. If you need to pause the video and think about it. Corollary 10. Truth does not depend on anything. Proof follows immediately from Corollary 5. Truth is absolute. Theorem 11. Truth is sovereign. Proof follows immediately from Theorem 9. Truth is conscious. And Corollary 10. Truth does not depend on anything, so it is sovereign. If it is conscious and doesn't depend on anything, then it is sovereign. Theorem 12. Truth is outside of space, time and matter. Proof follows immediately from Corollary 10, which was it does not depend on anything, so it is outside of time, space and matter. Theorem 13. Truth is all-powerful. Proof. Truth is omnipotent in the realm of truth, which is clearly true. It's obvious by itself, but we also show that the truth is sovereign, and clearly nothing but truth can exist in the realm of truth. But the realm of truth represents everything truthfully, as truth represents everything by Theorem 2. So truth is omnipotent in all realms. If the truth is omnipotent in the realm of truth, and that realm represents everything, then it also represents the omnipotence, and so truth is omnipotent in all realms. Now let's summarize what we've learned about truth. So summary 14. Truth always exists, Theorem 2, by itself, Corollary 4. It is independent from anything else, Corollary 10. Truth is not created, it simply exists by the virtue of its own nature. Truth cannot be destroyed or changed, Corollary 5. Truth is outside of space, it is timeless and not physical, Theorem 12. Truth has no limits and is complete, Corollary 6. Truth is consistent, Corollary 7. It's conscious, Theorem 9. Is sovereign, Theorem 11, and it's all-powerful, Theorem 13. We just studied the properties of truth, and we found that the properties of truth match the properties of God, that which defines God. So conclusion 15, God exists and is the truth as the God-defining attributes belong to the truth. Now if we pay attention to those things, they're just the attributes of God. All-powerful, sovereign, consistent, conscious, complete. So, we prove that God exists, not that God is not infinite. That's a nonsense. Infinity doesn't exist. And we can prove it in another video. Remark 16. Unlike truth, the existence of a lie is limited only where truth is not present, until exposed by the truth. So why I'm mentioning this is to draw your attention that truth exists by its own very nature and is self-sustaining and always existing, while lie exists only where truth is not present. In part 1 we prove that God exists and is the truth. Part 2. In part 1 we prove that God exists. In part 2 we will show that He is the God of the Bible, Yeshua, Yahweh. Theorem 17. Truth must manifest/claim himself and be well known. Proof. By its very nature, truth cannot be unknown, or lie will abound. Hence, since truth is conscious, by Theorem 9, he must manifest and declare himself. So by the very nature, truth cannot be unknown, or lie will abound, which is contrary to its nature. Truth doesn't tolerate lie. Hence, since truth is conscious, he must manifest and declare himself. So that's the theorem, is that truth must manifest, claim himself, and be well known. Observation and claim 18. Yeshua of Nazareth, the Christ, is the only claimant to be the truth, or only legitimate claimant. Yeshua is the first and only one who claimed to be the truth and supported his claim with miracles and circumstantial evidence. Notes. We note that Yeshua's claim was so unprecedented that people laughed, ignored, and most likely could not appreciate the magnitude and scope of the claim. So when he said, "I am the truth," Pilate just ignored it and asked the question, what is truth? The Pharisees, when he previously claimed it, so he didn't claim it just once, he claimed it several times. The Pharisees did not comment on it, And the students didn't comment either. The students, it went over their heads. The Pharisees just ignored it, didn't understand what it means. So they did not connect God to the truth. They knew that He is very particular about truth, but did not understand that He is the truth itself. So the claim is very unprecedented, and people didn't understand what it means. They couldn't appreciate it. Yeshua is exclusive, with Him or against Him, true or false. Now, when He was talking about the students, He said, "He who is not against you is for you." But when He talked about Himself, He said, "He who is not with me is against me. He that does not gather with me wastes." Yeshua backs His claim with prophecies which came through, and He was prophesied about. So there were certain prophecies about Him which happened, and He made certain prophecies which came through, like for example destruction of the temple and Jerusalem in 70 AD, and many others. Yeshua makes extraordinary intervention witnessed by many, curing people. Yeshua appeared in most undeveloped place in the known world, and in the most unlikely circumstances to be successful, being rejected by the religious and civil authorities, and had no material riches and academic support such as philosophy school, like the Greeks, and printing press or the internet. He was a mere carpenter with a handful of unlearned followers, yet he became the most well-known and successful philosopher in the entire world, implementing Theorem 17. So what I'm saying here is that he was born in a rebellious province of the Roman Empire, not particularly rich. So he was a carpenter in the outskirts of the empire, not in Greece, not in Rome, not in Alexandria in Egypt. Okay, so he had no philosophy school behind him like Socrates had Plato, or Aristotle had his school, or the Romans. There was no printing press, there was no internet. The religious and civil authorities rejected him, and all he had was a bunch of unlearned peasants. Yet, if you go on the street and you ask about Yeshua, also known as Jesus Christ, or Yeshua the Christ, most people, if not all people, would have heard of him and will be able to tell you something about him. If you go and ask about Aristotle, or Plato, or Socrates, or Kant, or Hegel, I doubt that 1 in 100 will be able to tell you something about, especially for these latter German philosophers who had the printing presses and backing up of thousands and thousands of universities, and even less will tell you what were actually their philosophies. While most people will know a few words from the philosophy of Christ. So we have a carpenter in the most remote part of the Roman Empire, a rebellious place, and he becomes the most successful and well-known philosopher, implementing Theorem 17. Truth must manifest himself and be well known. So he demonstrates that he is manifesting himself in the worst place where he can show himself with no support, and he becomes the leader of the world. It is not objectionable. It's not for questioning how much he have influenced our world and civilization. Considering, for example, that science is meaningless without Christianity. Why? How science came about? Well, it came about by Christians because they believe that the world is ordered, which comes from Christianity, and intelligible, which comes from Christianity. Ordered because Christ, the God of the Bible, is ordered, and they believed that he created the world, so the world must be ordered, and he put laws everywhere. And then they believed that the world is intelligible because we are image of God, which is again Christianity. So that's how science came about. Not to mention music, literature, civilization based on Christianity. So undoubtedly he is the most successful philosopher, implementing Theorem 17. So if your neighbor claims to be the truth, he may claim it, but he fails to fulfill Theorem 17. First, he is not the first one to make the claim, and we have unprecedented claim by Yeshua. And secondly, he is not well known. What we're doing at the moment is to confirm that he is the only candidate. So we expect that truth must manifest and claim himself and be well known. And we see what candidates we have. We have just one candidate, but this is not all that supports the claim that he is the candidate, that he is the truth. His witnesses readily died for his teaching with most horrific death penalty. The religious authorities and the Romans persecuted his followers, and all they had to do is deny Yeshua the Christ to be let go. They were brought to courts and they were asked to deny what they saw and deny that he resurrected from the dead, and they couldn't deny it. All they had to say is, I deny that, I made it up, I didn't see it, and bow in front of an idol, which means statue, and they would have been let go. But they chose to be eaten by wild animals alive or be boiled alive in boiling oil. So that tells a lot. If somebody is so impressed by something so that they prefer horrific death as opposed to just say, no, it didn't happen, must be something very, very impressive. Other evidence can be seen when studying his words and the Bible history. For example, he was born in the most undeveloped part of the Roman Empire. Links to a story in the Bible where God tells, I think he was Gideon, to go and fight an army with only 300 people, so that and he defeated them, so that they realize and understand that it was God who was fighting for them, not themselves. So here similarly, same pattern. And if you read the Bible, and especially the Gospels, you will find many such patterns. There are no other claimants, especially who are well known, meeting the requirement of Theorem 17. Your neighbor may be claiming that he is the truth, but most people haven't heard of him, so he is not the truth. But here we have somebody who is well known. He declared it first, and he has something to show for it. So also consider that no other deity claimed to be the truth. Only Yeshua claimed that. And so, conclusion 19, Yeshua, Yahweh, the God of the Bible, is the truth and the only God. Proof follows immediately from Theorem 17 and observation in claim 18. Summary 20. The God of the Bible, Yeshua, Yahweh, does exist and is the truth as he declares. So we just prove that the God of the Bible, Yahweh, Yeshua, does exist and is the truth. What we learn from this proof is that the truth is God, and Yeshua of Nazareth is the truth, as he said. Now he said other things, like he is the way and the life. Now, as we know that he is the truth, these other things are also true because he is the truth. So he is the way to life and life himself. Now, knowing this fact, it may be a good idea to learn about Christianity and see if you would be interested to become a follower of Christ, because he makes some very good promises. God created the world. We don't know how the world exists. We don't understand its nature. It is certainly metaphysical, i.e. information, as opposed to physical, because you can prove a whole lot of metaphysical things. One of them is that you exist, another is that God exists, but you cannot prove that your physical being exists. So the metaphysical is by far more real if I can prove it as opposed to the physical. So we're living in a metaphysical world, not in a physical world. Maybe in physical as well, but the physical is the lesser. And you can see God through this proof and through many other proofs, like the Leibniz's one, and there are many others. And you can see the intricacy of the world and figure that somebody created that. It doesn't appear out of nothing. And this evolution stupidity can be very easily shown complete nonsense. Like with infinity, they have an agenda. An agenda is make money and write papers. There was a problem. People are sinners, and sin is punished by death. God to the truth cannot tolerate a falsehood. By Theorem 17, suppose you said a lie, a little joke that you said, and somebody lost his fortune, his wife divorced them, and because of that, as a consequence, his kids had a car crash and were killed, and it all started with a joke. How are you going to repay? How are you going to restore his life? Penalty for sin is death. That's what the Bible says. And now God, in his love, sends his son the truth, and he says, if you accept me, I'll put your bill on me and I'll give you eternal life. That's all. That is the story of the gospel and the message of Christianity. It's just like a football match, and you can shout for this team or you can shout for that team. And the question is, which team you choose to shout? Do you choose to shout on the team of life, or you choose to shout on the team of death? So if you prefer to shout a team of life, you believe that Yeshua came, pay your debts, i.e. sins, and you will be forgiven. My story is that I wanted to do something, and what I wanted to do is not quite permitted. And if God exists, obviously I would be responsible, and I don't want to make a silly mistake. Therefore, I needed first to clear the question if there is God or not. So I bought a Bible, start reading the Gospels until I find a logical error. If Yeshua had made a mistake, a logical error, then he could not possibly be God. So I bought a Bible and start reading it. And when I finished the fourth Gospel, started from the first. And when I finished the fourth, started from the first. And I kept like that, trying to find a logical error. And what happened is that after several months, I think about half a year, reading every day, trying to find this error. 6 months later, I believed that Yeshua is the Son of God, as the Bible says, came on earth. God in flesh came on earth, died for our sins, without a sin himself, 3 days in the grave, and resurrected on the third day. And if you believe that in your heart and declare it with your mouth, you will be saved also. So accepting Yeshua and following him gives you the safety we're gonna go once the physical world is not part of your universe. What I mean, maybe when a person dies or when people are taken away, because there is a promise in the Bible that this world, there will be an end to it, an abrupt end to it.